Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers did it. Joseph Phillips is a part of the 2024 class.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We are live as we are recapping Auburn adding Joseph Phillips, the four-star linebacker from Booker T. Washington, to the 2024 class. I'm Zac Blackerby, Darrell Dapprich, and Charlie 5 hanging out with us. Let's go, guys. Let's go. I mean, this is a situation where over the last few weeks, it felt like Joseph Phillips kind of slipped away, and Georgia had him. And it's like, dang it, this is another where Auburn was kind of, on him early. He was in our backyard, with Tuskegee. And it's like, Kirby got to him. And at about 3 o'clock yesterday, you saw the Georgia media start saying, maybe not. Maybe it's not going to happen. Darrell, we'll start with you. Your initial reaction when all this happened.
Well, it's amazing how this has kind of gone back and forth, because I felt like he was a lock a couple months ago, and this was all going to just be, an afterthought. It was going to be semantics. And then when I started hearing that Georgia and Tennessee was getting in the mix, I started getting a little concerned. And I've always felt like I've stuck to the theory that Auburn truly's not back from a contending standpoint and a national recruiting force standpoint until they start beating Georgia, Alabama, those types of schools head-to-head. You've got to go head-to-head on the trail against Kirby and stomp him every once in a while, in my opinion, to be where you need to be. So that's why this is significant. Never mind the measurables, never mind what kind of great player he is and freak athletically. You look at his offer list, and that is what has got me so excited as to who Auburn won out against.
No question. Charlie 5 with no hat. Your thoughts on this tremendous recruiting win?
The balcony is undefeated, baby. You take them to the balcony and you close deals. I love it. I love it. I love seeing big recruiting wins again. Make no mistake about it. Kirby wanted this guy and had him like so locked up, as far as there was possibly some graphics already made for Georgia. There was commitment quotes for recruiting articles, and Hugh was relentless and wouldn't give up. And he was here for that camp. And I think like you said, on Wednesday, and things just seemed to have changed in the last minute. And I love it. I said it when Walker White happened. Nobody's off the table. It's not until it's over. We're ready to compete with the big boys, I think, and win some battles. And this kid can play multiple positions at linebacker. With the new scheme change, you just put him on the field, put him somewhere, and he's going to make plays. I'm very excited right now. I don't have a ton of time. I just want to jump on, say, War Damn, way to go, Hugh, and look forward to more of these wins.
Yes, thank you, Charlie 5, for stopping by for just a moment. You incredible message board legend, you. Darrell, to me, this kind of feels like it was, okay, Hugh needed to go toe-to-toe with either Kirby or Saban and win one. And this was the first one to really get that ball rolling. I know there was a Bama flip earlier in the class, but it felt like Bama was kind of okay with it. This was a guy that Georgia made a priority, and Hugh Freeze added him.
Yeah, great point. And, going back to that whole balcony comment, the last time I've seen this much action on a balcony was spring break in Panama City, right? I mean, it's just been amazing that the whole process and taking them out of camp and getting them somewhere on one-on-one conversations. And that's why it's so funny to talk about balcony boys and that kind of thing. It's working. And I think Derek Brown was a big get for Auburn against Georgia. This is the last time I felt like really good about a head-to-head matchup and a head-to-head game, a head-to-head recruiting victory was Derek Brown. And Auburn used to have these a lot against Mark Richt. Mark Richt was a good head coach and a good recruiter at Georgia, but Auburn won its share of battles. Kirby has locked it down, starting with the whole George Pickens fiasco, the receiver that Auburn had up until signing day when he switched at the table at his high school. So ever since that, I don't blame Auburn fans for being skeptical and for feeling like, show me that you can get this done. We've had the rug pulled out from underneath us before.
Right.
And I think this is going to be a situation where, look, Georgia's going to get its victories. They're going to go ahead and win their share of recruiting battles. You don't have to win all of them. You have to win some of them, in my opinion. And when Auburn can go back into Georgia and start getting guys in Kirby's backyard, it's monumental. But this is big because you do not want to lose a recruit 40 miles away or 25 miles away from Auburn when he's in your own backyard. And that's why I think this is big. Never mind, again, the measurables of the player.
Right. I think it sends a message. And so, you go to Booker T. Washington and you get their best player. Now, I think the focus is going to turn to Phoenix City. Can you get some of those guys that are, close to you in proximity as well? But I mean, this is so much bigger than just the player. This is sending a message. And the whole narrative over the last few weeks was like, crap, we're going to lose Phillips to freaking Georgia. I mean, another guy, it's like, it kind of felt like that, right? Like, man, Auburn's early on this kid. They found him, they were recruiting him hard before he really started ascending, and everybody found him. Everybody offered him, and, Georgia kind of rolled out the red carpet for him. I think Texas A&M was also there. I mean, they pulled all the stops to get him. It's like, man, like we've seen this happen before, right? Where like, Auburn's trending for a kid because they were the first to find them. And then when it really matters, they aren't able to close. And so this isn't what happened. And once again, just the fact that it went up against Kirby is huge because they've really been able to get everybody they've wanted at will. So I think that part of it cannot be stressed enough, Darrell, how huge that is. And so, the timing of it is also like you got two guys earlier in the week, then you get, you add a 4-star to the 2024 class. I mean, what a week it's been for the Auburn Tigers.
2 4-stars and a guy that's going to be a 4-star in Bryce Kane, just a matter of time. And I think this goes to show you a lot of times people underestimate what it means to get on a kid early. Because when we started hearing the name Joseph Phillips, let's be honest, it wasn't like a national known recruit. It wasn't somebody that we had heard the name before. Auburn got on him, and a lot of people started saying, this is a diamond in the rough. This kid is good. Then he gets, he's a 4-star. When Auburn was on him first, I think that had a lot to do with ultimately, and we'll hear what Phillips has to say himself about this, but I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Auburn ended up winning out in the end because they got on him first. And then once Auburn got on him, I also like being kind of pioneers in this. It warms the cockles of my heart to know that Tennessee, A&M, and Georgia, cockles. It's the parts of the heart that like ventricles and stuff around it. Yeah, it warms them because when Auburn recruits and evaluates a kid, when Tennessee, Georgia, and A&M follow suit and say, oh, this kid's good, and Auburn kind of led the way, you have to feel great about your staff and how they evaluate talent. I don't remember Harsin and them getting on a kid early, that was somebody who was under the radar, and all these other big dogs going, oh, well, if Brian Harsin and Eric Kiesau are recruiting this kid, we better get on him. I mean, that wasn't happening. The fact that Auburn was on him first and other major programs followed suit and was like that copycat type scenario, as an Auburn fan, you should feel great about scouting and evaluation of talent with the staff they have.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm going to point out this comment. There's different levels of bug. The current one is Dap making up body parts with suspicious names. I
didn't make it up. I promise that there is such a thing as. Now, I may have mispronounced it, but I mean, people can Google it. That there is, it's a component of the heart.
All right, whatever. That's cool. And you wear the heart on the sleeve, which I absolutely love.
There you go.
Somebody asked when he would be added to 247 Sports' class. It's on there. They've got 8 commits now. I don't think they've updated the ranking yet, so we'll see. Because surely Auburn's higher than 36 now, but
yeah, I think
that may not be.
That should, projection-wise, it should put him top 25. We'll see. And, obviously there's two variables. Every time you add commitments, they look at quantity, and then they look at quality too. Those two variables add up to it. Auburn had a .90 average ranking. I look at that because if you have 8 or 9 commits and some jackleg school has 18, they rank them higher. I mean, look, there's some schools above Auburn that we know Auburn has better talent. So you look at that average ranking, and Auburn was at .90.
Duke was one. Duke was one last year. They were 12th, but they had 25 3-stars.
I mean, it's just, and I think that when you can get quantity and quality, that's when you get a top 10 class. Right now, Auburn's sitting at 8 commits, and that average ranking is right at .90, .91. You take that, you take the average. I look at average star ranking, not just because you've got 20 commits that you're going to get ranked higher. And then again, to beat a dead horse, I look at offer list. When you're beating the big boys to get somebody, I think that's huge. And, huge. I love the narrative that's going to be built around this too. Don't underestimate. This is what's so important.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to start somewhere. You've got to get the ball rolling on winning these battles head to head with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Tennessees and those schools. I wouldn't put Tennessee, but some of the A&M who's had some good recruiting classes. Once you do it once, other kids notice. And you no longer, it's no longer such a unique thing. When it becomes commonplace is when you start stacking these. So somebody has to be the first. Kudos to Joseph Phillips for being that guy, but I think this opens the door for more. That's just how I feel about it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Winning the battle for Walker White was huge against Clemson and Dabo, and then Joseph Phillips the same way. And according to 247, Joseph Phillips is right behind Walker White as far as highest player rated in the class. And then Marion Burnett will be behind Phillips. So we'll see. But and we talked about this or alluded to him a second ago. Like Martavius Collins, like former Bama commit, and I mean he's kind of overlooked because I think that's a less flashy position. Like let's just be honest with it. But still, I mean. This is just an incredible situation. So
3 in 1 week, 3 in 2 days, or 3 days actually,
sure,
is great. I mean, you talk about building momentum, and you're getting this off of camp, right? When you start to have your camp, and we know that it was 3 times. I mean, listen, I know this for a fact because I have somebody that I know that provides apparel and gear for Auburn at these camps.
Oh,
and I can say this now because the camp is over. Right. 3 times the amount of the kids that went to Brian Harson's camp last year went to 3 times. They had to triple the order of those compression sleeveless shirts. Anytime you get that many kids on your campus, 3 times the amount you're used to having, and you start offering these kids, some of these kids after seeing them in camp, you hope it pops. And it has. 3 in 1 week is phenomenal.
It is. And, you're getting all these talented kids like wear Auburn gear. Like that has to have some kind of like psychological effect too. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Mitochondria points out, which is the powerhouse of the cell, On 3 has Auburn's recruiting class up to number 15. So that's great. And then somebody else mentioned Auburn will move up to 28th nationally and 8th in the SEC. Will says that. I assume that's on 247. So you're going to see different rankings this part of the year, which is totally fine. So I like On 3's better. I'll take top 15. Yeah,
the composites are the ones that I always caught myself looking at because it takes different websites and different recruiting services. ESPN has always been the one that seems to be out of left field, Zach. They kind of on their own. They're on their own island. They don't factor into anybody else's composites. They do their own things. But that's a big point, too, is that Auburn needs to start getting in on some of these ESPN top 100 kids and getting them on campus and getting them to commit because that starts to build the recruiting class as well. So I think this is just the beginning. I really do. I think this is a absolute statement and message that at the end of the day, it's going to be so exciting to see where this class ends up.
It's probably too early to compare these kids, but he kind of reminds me of a former Georgia guy that Auburn pursued hard and ultimately lost to Georgia, Quay Walker.
Oh, yeah.
I see a lot of similarities in the two. Which I would take that. I would take that in a heartbeat. By the way.
I mean, Georgia's linebacker core. I mean, they've been putting him in the league even when Richt was there. I mean, they had guys that were Jarvis Jones and some of those guys that were first round picks. So they've always done a really good job. The kid that played for the Jets, that was really good. I can't think of his name, but they've always had a great tradition of linebackers. And Kirby Smart, having coached under Saban, being a defensive coordinator, saw something that he wanted in this kid. That's an endorsement in itself as well.
I'm with you. Auburn football posting the Hugh Freeze Yahtzee video in response to this. I think that's always a nice touch. Very subtle. Love that the Yahtzee thing is this come. So a few folks are asking who's next, and I'm not really sure. I'm just going to be honest with you. Not really sure.
Well, I hope
it's a
You
line.
mentioned 3 names earlier in the week that you felt like were going to commit, and I think one has. I think you mentioned Blockton, Kane, and I'm trying to think who the third that you mentioned that you felt like were next. And obviously Kane committed. We didn't have Faustin in that, but then he committed. So maybe the other 2 that you had in your podcast.
DJ Barber was the other
DJ
one.
Barber, and Barber's from Chilton County, right? No, that's Reddick. Reddick's from Chilton County, wearing Auburn gloves at the 7-on-7.
Clay Chalkville is
Clay Chalkville. Yeah. So, I mean, that could come. I mean, next, there's the Crawford kid that was crystal ball to LSU, but now that's kind of flipped a little bit. So and if they come in 2s and 3s, that's really special. It really is.
Sure. Yeah, they can come in whatever number they want as long as it keeps coming. The timing of everything happening pretty close together, Darrell, and there may be more guys like you mentioned Blockton, you mentioned Barber, and we'll see what happens with Riddick. He's wearing Auburn gloves, like you said right now. Do you think this is just kind of a culmination of work and it just happens to kind of all pop at the same time with these kids being on campus with, I mean, it's visit season, with June and July, or do you think it's strategic? Like, do you think some of these guys have been silent for a few days or a few weeks maybe, and they're like, hey, let's kind of roll these out. Let's kind of get some momentum going. Or do you think it's a thing where maybe On to Victory's coffers are filled up a little bit? Maybe they got some extra funds to throw around, hypothetically, of course. I am kind of curious to see, like, why is it all happening right now? Because we've kind of been waiting for this for months, honestly.
I think it's a combination of all 3, and I know that's a really crappy way and an easy way to get out of it, but I do believe, like, as we're sitting here right now, you can't convince me that Auburn doesn't have some silence right now. They have some silent commits that have committed to Auburn that haven't announced yet. I'm convinced of that. Number 2, anytime you get on campus and you start getting around other players that have committed to Auburn and you start getting coached up by these coaches, a familiarity starts to breed and you start to get comfortable around them. So you want to commit at that point because you've been on campus and you've been around the guys that are going to coach you. And then I do believe On to Victory is probably getting replenished and some things are happening. So I think it's a combination of all of that. And then I do believe the 4th factor will be peer recruiting. As the ball starts to roll and people start to jump in the car, others want to jump in because they look at class size and that kind of thing. And then you've got to consider this. 18-year-old kids now that are getting ready to commit, thinking about committing in 2024, have to feel like there's a portal transfer side to this that eats up scholarships and eats up class size. So you have to make sure you commit and you have your place and you have your scholarship because your spot may be taken by somebody in the transfer portal that comes in and can play right away from a scholarship standpoint. That's all factors as to why these kids.
Break that down for me. I don't fully understand what you're saying there.
So let's say you're a kid that's going to graduate in 2024 and you're thinking about going to play college football at a particular institution and there's only X amount of scholarships available. I mean, you can only put 85 on scholarship.
Sure.
And let's just say Auburn has 24 available. Okay. What if some of those 24 are being used by kids that Auburn's going to recruit into the transfer portal? That takes spots away.
I got you.
Spots that would normally just be made for high school seniors. I mean, you only have so many scholarships, so how you use them, numbers are numbers are numbers. Now, I do like the fact that if you lose 30 players, you can go get, they don't cap that anymore. But you still have 85 spots. And how you get to those 85 spots matters. And if you've only got 20 and you're a senior coming out of high school and you go to Auburn got 20 kids in the portal this year. So those are scholarships that would have been unused or taken up by maybe going down the list a little bit to high school players.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if that impacts it or not. Do more guys commit before their senior season? We'll see. Saw a few reports earlier this week that guys like Cam Coleman, though, still probably going to be a signing day decision.
Yeah. But guys like that
dreading that already, by the way.
Yeah, you're 5 stars. You don't have to worry about transfer portals and that kind of thing. You're going to have a spot at where you want to go to school regardless.
Yep. I'm with you. So I guess final thoughts with all of this. I mean, once again, cannot stress enough. I mean, there was a report, I think it was the Georgia Rivals site, where they were reporting that he had a graphic made. He had, they had stories with quotes written and ready to go, and they had to change it. They all changed their stories last night because he wasn't going to commit to Georgia. I mean, I wonder what the last pitch was, because we saw this before. Walker White, Hugh Freeze and them didn't know he was going to commit, right? Yeah. So I wonder what that final pitch was and how similar it was to what they said to Walker.
Well, to solidify what you're saying, I mean, I haven't had a chance because I've been on this with you, but if you pull up the comment from Ricky Smith right there at 12:28 p.m., I can't confirm this, but he is saying that Joseph Phillips says he was going to commit to Georgia on Tuesday. So, I mean, and here we are Friday or Thursday, so it flipped pretty quick. I mean, it was 24 hours. Why that is, I don't know, but turning up the heat or showing that something changed. Look, and again, I'm going to be very, very transparent and honest here.
Okay.
If anybody out there thinks this is based solely on money and NIL, they're fooling themselves, because anything Auburn wants to do from an NIL standpoint, you've got to be crazy to think Georgia couldn't match. Of course they can. So it's not just about going to the highest bidder or being bought or NIL. NIL is a factor. I get that. But it's not like, I'm going to go to Georgia on Tuesday and then Wednesday Auburn comes back and doubles the NIL. No way, because Georgia could match whatever Auburn wanted to do from an NIL standpoint. They've got deep, deep coffers. Look at the athletic budget report that came out that had Auburn 11th or something like that, Georgia in the top 5. The variables for this goes deeper than just NIL. It has to do with culture, who you're getting coached by, and maybe being the guy that helps bring back prestige and, the bar being raised to Auburn football. I don't think playing time. I think he was probably going to be offered significant playing time at Georgia too. So those are all things.
He's good. Georgia wanted him. I mean, they're going to act like they didn't, but Georgia wanted this guy. And you just look at his top 5. His top 5 from back in April was Auburn, Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, and A&M. This is big boy recruiting that we just haven't done in a few years. Clemson's another one. Auburn's got to win some battles head to head, especially like you said over in Phoenix City. That's got to change as well. That's another key indicator that Auburn's doing what they need to do from a recruiting standpoint when they start beating Dabo head to head as well. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And so I think we're going to start seeing some offensive linemen soon, and then maybe D'Angelo Barber and Malik Blockton as well. Darrell, as we wrap up, how can people check out everything that you've got going on right now? Follow me at Twitter, DAP6410, and I love interacting in the Discord with everybody. Really enjoy that as well. Yes, thank you to everybody in the live chat, and we will be back for a normal episode Friday morning. We'll see you then. This has been Locked On Auburn.